On April 9, 2015, I had the liberty of visiting the Metropolitan Museum in New York City. Out of all the magnificent works that I saw as I walked along corridors, one stood out to me the most. This was the beautiful sculpture called Perseus holding the head of Medusa. The sculpture was created by Antonio Canova and is completely made of marble. The backstory to this sculpture is as follows. The cunning king hatched a plan to rid his kingdom of the troublesome young man so he might marry the beautiful Danae. One day he suggested that Perseus set on a grand adventure to defeat one of the fearsome Gorgon sisters, terrible monsters who terrorized the Greeks and defeated many would-be heroes. Eager for adventure, Perseus agreed to seek and defeat one of the Gorgon sisters, Medusa, a horrible monster who had the power of turning anyone who saw her into stone. Polydectes rejoiced that the youth would probably never return from his travels and concluded that he could marry Danae without difficulty. He then succeeded in doing so and slayed Medusa, keeping her head as a trophy, which he proudly displays in this sculpture. The name of this work is called Perseus with the Head of Medusa, as said before. The myth of Perseus and Medusa was one of the most powerful inspirations for many artists in the ancient times, but it hasn't lost its artistic significance to the present day either. Paintings and sculptures of the moment of beheading or of Medusa's portrait itself are famous all over the world. One of the most known artwork is Medusa's Shield by Caravaggio, painted at the end of the 16th century. As I said earlier, there was a lot of amazing sculptures and paintings, but this one specifically caught my eye. One reason for this was the fact that it seemed so majestic and that it was located in the center of the room. It basically demanded attention from all the visitors. Perseus' pose was very strong and gave off a heroic feel. What impressed me the most was the actual head of Medusa. The way in which it was sculpted was literally the exact image I pictured in my head when I first read this myth. The craziness and wildness of the hair with the snakes and the eyes really brought the myth to life. I believe that it was most important that if you are visiting the Metropolitan Museum, that you go and visit this outstanding sculpture. The myth of Perseus and Medusa is among the most famous Greek myths known in our time. Therefore, I believe actually seeing this piece of artwork brings the myth to life. Two very interesting details about this sculpture would first, of course, be the head of Medusa. If you look very closely, the sculptor took the time to carefully carve out the little heads of each individual snake. I thought this was very interesting. If the sculptor hadn't included this small detail, I believe seeing the sculpture would have been a letdown. Another interesting detail was the sword Perseus was grasping in his right hand. I felt this was a nice touch to the sculpture because it adds a sense of strength and bravery. It also indicates that Perseus was a righty, something that you could not have known from merely reading the myth. Essential information that someone should know about this myth is that Canova, the preeminent sculptor of the age of neoclassicism, was a prodigiously talented carver of marble especially. The pose intensely recalls the Apollo Belvedere, the work of antiquity most admired in Canova's era. The first version of the Perseus was acquired by Pope Pius as a replacement for the Apollo itself, which Napoleon had removed from the Vatican and shipped to the Louvre in Paris. The Perseus was so efficacious that it remained as a companion to the returned Apollo when the Congress of Vienna compelled the restitution of the Napoleonic era. The museum's version was purchased from Canova by the Polish Countess Valeria Tarnowska. The sculptor Antonio Canova, born in 757 and died in 1822, was a leading prominent of neoclassicism and Italy's last internationally famous artist. The sculptor Antonio Canova, born in the village of Passanego in 757, rose to celebrity from humble origins. The son and grandson of provincial stone carvers in the rural Veneto, he was brought up and trained by his paternal grandfather after the death of his father and the immediate remarriage of his mother. Another one of Canova's famous works includes the Bust of Paris, which was also made of marble in 1809. In conclusion, I believe it is most necessary to visit the Metropolitan Museum and take a moment to observe the stunning work of Antonio Canova. It truly will be worth it.